righty, good afternoon, everybody. It's 2 minutes after noon. Happy, healthy New Year to you all. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dr. Dina Kurzweil. I'm the Director of the Education and Technology Innovation Support Office, or ETI for short. And today I'm very pleased to introduce our green room technician, Zachary Laszlo. Mr. Laszlo oversees the green room, or as we like to tell people, the studio. You may have seen him on the sidelines at a Washington football team game with his camera, filming those games and editing them, or some of his work out in the field. He's worked for many other organizations. He's been at USU for quite a while now, and we're very happy to have him. So I'm going to turn it over to him right now. Please be sure you stay on mute. We have a large enough audience. If you have a question, we'll be monitoring the chat, and at the very end, we'll open up for chats. Just a side note, we are recording today. So thank you very much. Mr. Laszlo, take it away.
Great. Well, thank you, Dina. Like Dina said, my name is Zach Laszlo. I'm in charge of the Green Room Studio here at USUS with the ETI, and we will get going here. Okay, well, again, thank you. Today we are going to be talking about using green screen to expand teaching possibilities. We will have a Q&A at the end of today's session to discuss any additional questions or comments anyone may have. And our objectives today. So by the end of today's session, you will be able to describe what green screen is and why to use it, compare the 3 levels of green screen content that the ETI offers, identify at least 2 planning considerations for what goes into the process from start to finish, and outline the steps for creating virtual background presentations on your own, similar to this. So what is green screen / chroma key? So a green screen itself is self-explanatory. A green screen goes behind a subject during filming, and chroma keying is the post-production process that picks one color and removes it from the image, leaving the rest of the scene transparent, which you can then layer different backgrounds and elements to create a video or scene. So green and blue screens are used because they are the furthest away from human skin tones, as you can see here. Once you pick that color, you're less likely to lose some of the subject. So why use green screen? Well, green screen helps you feel like you're part of the scene without actually being in a different location, and helps generate embodied learning. It's more engaging and social for your audience, and it just makes for easier demonstration. When making videos for distance learning, it's hard to interact with the content you've made, and this allows you to point, act out, and visualize certain parts of your presentation. So ETI offers 3 levels of green screen content, and that is the Weatherman style, the mini production, and the scripted scenarios. And so the first one is the Weatherman style. And the Weatherman style has your PowerPoint slides or images behind you, talking like a weatherman, pointing out your content over your shoulder. And this requires practice. We usually like to have the presenter come in another time before their scheduled session to get a sense of standing in front of the screen. And with this, your slide will need formatting. Since your image will be taking up part of the screen, you'll need to format your PowerPoints to give you space. About 2/3 of your image will be with content, and 1/3 of your slides empty to give you room to stand so you don't block any content. This is fully utilized if you want to give visual demonstrations, to walk around and point things out with diagrams, charts, or how to use certain tools. So here's an example I shot of that format, demonstrating a video of a beating heart and then going back into lecture content.
Okay, now these are not nerves. They are specialized cardiac muscle cells. They send signals and cause contractions, and this is called the cardiac conduction system. And that is what we are going to talk about next.
So next is the mini production. This is a more scripted approach. It's more planning, but a more professional end product. You still talk directly to the camera, but graphics, images, and content are edited around you after the recording rather than during. This is another example of the mini production that I shot. We would script out beforehand what animations and graphics would be on screen, and we'd plan the video around that.
Ballistic wounds come in all shapes and sizes, and projectiles may be traveling at any velocity. There are a number of variables that determine the extent of ballistic wound damage, including velocity, mass and surface area of the projectile, tissue density, and elasticity. All of these factors affect the extent of surface and internal tissue damage.
And last is the scripted scenario. This puts you directly in a scripted scene. We change the background to put you elsewhere to enhance the content. This is an example of someone else's green screen studio here, but some practical uses for this could be warfighter scenarios or talking about the desert and heat stroke. You can teach any sort of scene in a different location. Again, this is completely planned out ahead of time and scripted. This is the last example of a scripted scenario and putting myself underwater to talk about lung capacity. And I'm not a method actor, so I didn't jump into a pool or anything before this.
The total lung capacity, or TLC, of the average human is about 6 liters. The estimated time you can hold your breath varies from around 30 to 90 seconds, but can vary due to a number of factors. Doing so for longer periods of time can decrease oxygen flow to the brain, causing fainting, seizures, and brain damage. Which means I need to get to the surface soon.
Now on to some important planning considerations. First, there is no audience. Lecturing is different than presenting in a classroom when you're in the green room. There's no engagement. There's no looking at faces for questions or seeing how it's being received. Thus, you must prepare and practice. Next is scripting. The content we'll be making is very purposeful, and recording in the green room is not a place for ad-libbing. In person and in a conversational context, you have a little bit more flexibility to ad-lib, but in front of a camera, it can make you look unprofessional and unprepared. And there are some times you can use a teleprompter. There are other times you cannot. It is a project-dependent consideration, and you must discuss with your project team in advance if that's something you want. So we always say it is best to learn your script. And I know people feel comfortable with the content they normally teach, but with the green screen lights and the setup, it can throw off even experienced lecturers. Next is dress tips. Don't dress to match the green screen color. If you wear green or a similar tone, it may start to fade into the background. White tends to reflect the green background as well and can show up on clothing, so we don't recommend wearing straight white either. A common issue with the dress color is the standard Army uniform. This usually requires a more fine-tuned selection of green to make sure we don't accidentally fade anyone into the background like you see in this image here. Stripes almost vibrate on camera and can be a bit distracting, so we ask that you don't wear stripes. Avoid shiny object like jewelry and some earrings. Those can also be reflective of the green and may disappear in the edit once we start to take away the green color. Solid contrasting colors are best. You stand out from the screen and you don't cause any distractions. We also suggest powder or makeup to avoid any blemishes or reflections, and we have some of that in the studio if need be. Next, we'll go over the timeline for these projects. The timeline is dependent on presentation length, type, and complexity. There can be background development, animations, etc. So in summary, these are not done in a week. And as a reminder, these take time, and we are happy to help with any project, but please consider the total completion timeline in your planning. And some considerations. So this is what a rough process looks like. First, there's slide preparation. It's formatting your slides in the ways discussed earlier. If the Weatherman format, you won't have your notes available unless they are in your hand and you look down, and we don't recommend that because anytime you look away from the camera, you are breaking that connection between you and the viewer. Next is practice and rehearsal. It's a new approach when you're looking at yourself in the screen and you can be backwards. We recommend practicing in the green room beforehand so you have a sense of what to expect. And then after that practice comes potential re-edits. After the walkthrough, is there anything we should adjust in your slides or your script before the recording date? We want to make sure we have that right before recording. And then next is shooting your content. This is obviously where we record everything we have planned. And then following that is editing. And editing can take the most time depending on your project. And of course, we want you to review the final product, which could lead to additional re-edits. and do it at home. So this is my current setup for this presentation here. Now, you don't need a fully collapsible green screen. You really only need to hang a solid contrasting sheet or tablecloth to tack to the wall, or even a wall itself, assuming it's not too close to your skin tone or outfit. An important part of a good green screen effect, though, is lighting. You want both your screen or cloth and yourself well lit, either with extra lights on your desk or bringing in other lights while you're shooting, but the more light, the better. I'm just using a battery-powered LED here that's just shining on my face and the screen here. So Zoom and Google Meets both have options to replace your own background. We're on Zoom today, so that's what we're going to use. And in terms of green screen, Zoom is a better platform to use this tool, at least as of now. In Zoom settings, you can set a virtual background with or without a green screen. If you don't have a sheet behind you, the software will do its best to figure out what the subject is and remove anything else. But the image looks significantly better if you do have a solid color behind you and you select the I have a green screen button at the bottom of the settings. The difference between having a physical green screen and relying on Zoom to guess the subject is a big difference. It does an average job at guessing the head, but in this case, it does leave a green tint around it. And when you get into the hand and other features, it's not ideal. On the right, it shows the I have a green screen feature on, and you can see a very crisp separation between subject and background. Google Meets also allows you to replace your background. It doesn't have a designated green screen button to help the effect out, but it is an option if that is how you're presenting. But the next feature, at least currently, is only unique to Zoom. And that is putting your PowerPoint behind you as a virtual background to present, which is what we did at the beginning of this presentation. So to do this, you will select Share Screen at the bottom. And from this option, you will have the option to share your screen from desktop windows to other monitors and applications, but you will go into the Advanced tab and select Slides as Virtual Background. And once you do that, you will select your PowerPoint presentation and hit Open. And keep in mind that when you do this, Zoom will initially close your PowerPoint presentation if you had it open. You can reopen it after it becomes your background, but it will close it initially. And once it's there, you can then move around your image and scale it and put it wherever you want on screen, which is a very useful tool to have, especially in distance learning. Keep in mind that this feature is still in beta and has been since August of 2020. You can click through your slides, but at least currently it does not have the option to play through animations or videos. It will basically export your slides as PDFs and stay how the initial slide looks. Also note that recipients must be on at least version 5.2 to use this feature, but hopefully at this point, people are way beyond that, but it is something to be aware of. To wrap up, here are a couple examples of green screen videos we've shot for different situations.
Well, the waiting list
Recently,
is
Dean Elster
enormous.
came
So
to
you can
us
see
while
the
we were
waiting
actually
list is
preparing
over
this brown
100,000
bag,
patients,
wanted to emphasize
in
what
the
could be
United
done
States.
with recording
And
lectures
we don't
in
do
front of a
enough
green screen.
transplants to meet that demand. So we're always trying to push the envelope with respect to taking, maximizing the pool of cadaveric transplants, increasing donation, and maximizing the use of living donors.
This is another Weatherman example done by Dr. Mueller.
Is the
He did a whole
secretory
series of
profile
lectures on the
insulin.
pancreas last summer.
This is normal in response to, for example, a carbohydrate stimulus. We see there's a dramatic increase, abrupt increase that reaches a plateau.
He did a great job of utilizing diagrams and charts throughout those series of lectures. Next was the MEM outbreak investigation. It was part of a board game.
They usually do a pretty good
And
job
even though it
keeping us
looks
fed.
natural, like rooms here at USIS or in the hospital, all the backgrounds here were added after the
Or if
fact.
this isn't coming
It
from
provides a
the
familiar
you
setting,
don't
but
want
lets
to
us
do that
shoot in a
somewhere.
controlled
You
environment.
know, sometimes the bottled water tastes and smells funny, but we've been told it's safe to drink.
And this was an example of the residents as teacher
And on
feedback,
a scale of
which
1
was
to 10,
another
how would
example
this-
of acting like we're in an exam room,
A
but still
14,
being in
so
that
bad.
controlled environment where we could put the lights and cameras however we wanted them.
And has anything like this ever happened before?
I
I mean, maybe once or twice when I was younger, but it's been a really long time.
And ETI is here to collaborate with you and support you with any ideas you have. Hopefully this sparked some ideas for future content, and we look forward to working with you in the future. We will put our email address into the chat if you want to reach out to get started on anything you have in mind. And here are some references we had for researching this brown bag here.
Thank you for watching today's Teaching with Technology brown bag session. You can view all Teaching with Technology brown bags on the USU YouTube channel under the full ETI playlist. Have a nice day.